Yo, what's up, everybody? It's Orange Bloods Live on a Thursday. I have not shaved in a week. I thought about doing it like an hour ago, and the news will not let me stop to shave. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That's Chad Hastings. We'll be talking about all the things that have been happening today in the world of Longhorn football and the portal that has kept me from shaving. Stay tuned. We'll get to that in a second. Yes, we see you, Raleek Brown, and so many other things that just keep going on in this 7-day dopamine hit thrill ride that we're on that hasn't always been thrilling, but it's been a ride. Do us a solid like, comment, subscribe to the page, all those things that YouTube voices tell you to do. We do appreciate your support in all of those things. Like, get some notifications today if you haven't done that. Jump into the Specs chat it up. The other day, yesterday, they were chatting so much in the chat that they got me to say something in the middle of the show that was inaccurate and made me feel bad, and like, shame on the chatters. But go into the Specs chat. Try not to put me out on an island by myself.
I've been instructed not to read the chat. I've been instructed not to read the chat to catch anymore. That's not happening. Yeah.
But nevertheless, Chad, Raleek Brown, Texas got it good, and Hercules. The Longhorns finally got something happening for them in the portal that Texas fans can kind of do a pump fist over.
Yeah, at one of those positions. I think ultimately you keep waiting for one of those three positions, either an offensive lineman, a wide receiver, or a running back. So I guess it starts with running back. We talked about yesterday how that yesterday as a Wednesday just felt really big, and then it ends up not being as big on the offensive line side. We'll get to that discussion. But Raleek Brown, it had to happen. If they didn't get Raleek Brown, then what goes on at the running back discussion? Oh, my goodness. But, yeah, young man from Arizona State, going to be a Longhorn, a California kid. And Catch, as I pointed out on the modcast this week, I'm a huge fan of his the throat ink. Because if you're going to sit in a chair and get a tat on your neck, you're devoted. You're committed. And I also like what it says about your patience and your pain tolerance. But he's got kinfolk tattooed right here, right across the throat. And he's coming to Texas. So now he's making the Longhorns part of his kinfolk.
I'm much more excited about the fact that this guy's a good player. I think what he is an elevated Jaden Blue. This is a guy that put up over 1,400 yards in the Big 12 last year. First team all Big 12. Really consistent. I mean, he had 4 100-yard games. One of them was a monster game against Colorado. Mm-hmm. Everything else was like 15 carries a week. Usually somewhere between, 70-ish, 75 yards, averages 6 yards per carry. The thing, though, that really stands out in addition to the versatility, right? His ability, caught 34 passes last year. This is a traditional old school all-purpose back. We would have called him a third down back not too long ago.
Yeah.
And he still will kind of have that role. I think there's a little bit of, there will be a thunder and lightning kind of duo in this. Texas didn't have any lightnings. This guy, let me give you the stat that I think best describes what he gives Texas that they didn't have last season. This is the long carry from Trey Wisner in every game that he played last year. Okay. 13, 6, 37, 8, 9, 13, 16, 12, 48. So in only 2 games last year, did he have runs of 17 or more yards in all of the games? Not multiple runs like that in a game, but just did it ever even happen? And it rarely did. Last year, Raleek Brown's long carry in all games that he played in, 19, 26, 75, 14, 35, 14, 22, 23, 26, 6, 88, 28. In 9 of his games last year, he had runs of more than 17, I think even 20 yards. Like every game, he's giving you explosiveness in the run game. And the kind of big plays that we just bemoaned all season long that this group wasn't making guys miss. I think I saw a stat earlier today from a guy that works at the Statesman. He's still new, though, so I haven't memorized his name. Sorry, new guy at the Statesman. Good stat, though. Raleek Brown made 52 guys miss last year in games. The combination of Trey Wisner and CJ Baxter made 37 misses. So you're just getting a more dynamic guy who has the ability to make plays on his own with a little bit more versatility. I mean, this is a guy that would have made last year's team better. They needed a guy like this last year, and they didn't have him. Now, look, there's so much more work to do. Like, don't think because we're doing the Raleek Brown spiel that we've forgotten that there's a whole lot of work to do at the offensive line. Cam Coleman is still hanging out there in the balance, and probably, it's the first time in a few days we haven't led with Cam Coleman. They obviously need linebackers. There's so much more in the portal that they still need to accomplish. But today, Raleek Brown is a win for the program that I think needed one. They needed to get some good juju going because it's like, oh, God, this guy portaled and this guy portaled and this guy's staying at Michigan. They needed to stick with one of these. Yeah. I think Raleek Brown, for my money, is probably the best running back that's actually in the portal. Yeah, you can. I'm a big Adam Muhammad guy, so you could talk me in there. I think the Hollywood kid, that Hollywood Smothers, that came from NC State, that went to Alabama. Quite honestly, I think he and Raleek Brown have a lot of similarities.
Okay,
I think Brown's been the more productive guy and has kind of the bigger legacy. I think, think about Raleek Brown. Here's his career, Chad. He comes in as a freshman 5-star at USC in 2022. For that would be the DJ Campbell year, I guess, right? If you're trying to place guys in recruiting classes. He's really good as a freshman. And by the end of the year, in the Cotton Bowl against, I think they played Tulane. I'm trying to remember who they played. I looked at it earlier. He finishes with like 65 rushing yards, a touchdown, a couple of catches. I think it was 85 all-purpose yards, which is very Christian Clark-ish. You know what I mean? It's like last game of the season. What would you want to see from a guy that would give you hope going into the next season that he's about to take off? And it's like, well, how about almost 100 yards and a touchdown in the bowl game? And it's like, that would do. That'd be pretty good. And then he got hurt and misses essentially all of 2023, and he misses all of 2024 except for 2 games. Then he comes back and is 1,400 plus all-purpose yards and first-team all Big 12 as a running back. I would contend if they can keep him on the field, which, look, what I just described is everybody's got to be a little bit leery of. This is a guy that comes with some injury issues. He's not the biggest guy in the world. Maybe you don't want to give this guy 30 carries in a game. But he's shown that he can handle 15. He can probably go up to 20 in a pinch. And if you can keep him on the field, everything about his college career when he's on the field, whether it be his true freshman season many moons ago at USC or playing all season long this year in the Big 12, like this is a guy that's a really good player. And now, unless there's anything else to say about Raleek Brown, there's so much more, obviously, to still talk about.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a lot going on. There's things in the chat I'm not even going to say. But I'm seeing some breaking news, Catch. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it out loud, but I'm seeing another Longhorn in the portal.
Okay.
According to On3. Are you seeing it?
Oh, I see it. Is it Zena?
There you go. Why don't you go ahead and say it? Because we didn't go so well yesterday.
Because I can see that like there's a report out that that Zena Yamuzalo, and this one isn't shocking either. So Zena Yamuzalo, young redshirt freshman edge, his brother, like they end up taking Zena and getting Zena because his brother was Neto and was a big piece of that 2022 recruiting class. It got to be, I just all season long have wondered how awkward it had to have been knowing that Neto got frozen out for reasons that have never been completely explained to me. He didn't do anything that was so bad that he got thrown off the team or anything like that. But they wouldn't play him over Nick Brooks, even though he was supposed to be the reason why they didn't go out and get a guard in the offseason. They trusted that Neto would be a starter. It's almost like he got Hudson Card, where once you lose, if Sark gives you trust and then he loses it in you, you don't ever get it back. We've seen that happen a few times. Regardless, Neto couldn't go on the field. We knew, all right, well, something's got to give. When this season's over, he'll probably be in the portal because he still has a season of eligibility remaining. And if he wants to play, he can't do that at Texas. He did go into the portal. Now, look, there's a couple of other Yamuzalo brothers who are on the roster that I think he would just have to be naive to think that all of this stuff wouldn't impact potentially them. And, oh, by the way, Zena does fit the profile of a guy that probably would be thinking about transferring at a school like Texas. He doesn't project to be a starter going to next season. It's hard to say, will he even be in the rotation? I think he's an extremely talented player. If you tell me that he plays in the NFL in 3 or 4 years, I'm not going to blink, but he's not a plus player yet. There's some family drama there that I think we can all acknowledge that even if we don't know what it is, something happened. So even though not on the top list of names of players that I am that was not I was looking for a couple of other names, Chad. That was not it, but not surprised. This was one we've been talking about in the middle of the season where it was like, hey, we're a little ways away from the portal, but probably just need to keep an eye on all of the Yamuzalos because Neto ain't coming back in all likelihood. And I think it's unfolded that way.
All right, there you go. Updated information right here on OB Live. I see another super chat that just came in. There are 2 of them. Let's give Specs a little love, and then we will get to those super chats.
Shop Specs! 60 years in the Lone Star State. A one-stop shop so you're never late. Price is so low that you want to know
Which way to Specs?
Come on, let's go.
Specs Wine Spirits and Finer Foods. World-class service, that's all about you. Shop Specs!
It's how we do. A huge selection since 62.
Shop Specs!
Low priced, amazing. Here's to you.
Shop.
Cheers to savings.
Tonight starts at 5 nights in a row of big-time football, college and pro. So get to Specs and get stocked up if you need to. All right, let's talk. Get a couple $5 super chats out here. Catch, keep the discussion going. $4.99, Justin is freaking out. Not happening, but what if Arch on 114 sees O-line will be what it is today, says I'm leaving for the NFL. Would there be mass exodus 2 days before portal close? Good grief,
No.
Justin.
No, because most of these guys are now under contract.
Come on, Justin.
You see that situation that's happening with Washington right now? Like, you know, I it's okay. We're good. Of all the things that I'm worried about or thinking about or having my pile of these things Texas should be concerned about, that's at the bottom.
Then this one for $5 to start us off. Proven commodity over quantity. Texas ain't the only one. It's a common theme. If you go look at other blue blood programs, Sark even said it.
Taylor Joe's not wrong in a lot of ways. I mean, I think what's happening at Texas right now is happening at Ohio State. There's a problem that Texas has, and that they got too many good players who can command money on the, all of the schools that we talk about all the time with the number of super blue chips and stuff that they have stacked up. It's like they've been hit with a new luxury tax. And the new luxury taxes back in the day, you collect 24 stars in a class, and that literally is what number 1 ranked recruiting classes do. They'll take 20 combined 4 and 5 stars, and then they just stack them on the roster. And then the next year, do the exact same thing. In 2026, those guys have real street value. They're not guys that you can continue to stockpile without real cost. So at the end of I think part of what we're seeing at Texas and Ohio State is that both of those schools are realizing there actually is a limit to the amount of money that we have to do stuff with. It's not an endless pot of gold, not even for Ohio State, not even for Texas. I think there are a lot of guys that they would have recruited coming out of high school that they paid a lot of money to. And Chad and I have had a million conversations on this show about this topic with a myriad of players on this Texas team who we know got paid a lot of money to come to Texas, but haven't delivered on those goods. You know, Bo Barnes is a perfect example of a guy in the last 24 hours that would fit into this profile of cost a lot of money. Texas has got to kind of consider whether or not they're going to continue to have somebody at a rate that is A, above maybe market value, and B, above what, and I mean market value for the position, like in general, and then above market for a guy who's not contributing at the levels that, quite frankly, you want to pay players, say, six figures for. So, yeah, Ohio State and Texas are having to deal with this. Georgia, I think it's catching up to them. We've seen them start to have these. None of these three schools have been among the most aggressive, like Indiana or Texas Tech or A&M, in terms of stockpiling commitments. I also think, guys, this is not an insignificant detail. Texas, Ohio State, and Georgia this year, really for the first time, are experiencing what A&M has had to go through for the last couple of years. Like, this isn't excuse making or anything else. A&M went through a coaching change. They had an exodus of players that require, even if the last two head coaches at A&M didn't want to go into the portal. And we know that when Jimbo was there, he had 0 one year, and then the next year had to go crazy. They've gone through this. They're better prepared than Texas for what it means when floodgates open. What do you do? Last year, there was a little bit of this for Texas, and they didn't engage in this period of the portal. So a little bit of the, well, this is just their first, like, there are new problems for these types of schools. And I don't know that Texas especially doesn't have the learned experience in the portal that I would say a school like Indiana clearly does after the last couple of years. A school like Texas Tech has for the last couple of years. They're executing a plan that they feel like this is what we do. This is how we do it. We have a formula. Repeat the formula. Texas is trying to create a new formula because they've never had to do this before, and it's not working because they don't want to do what Texas Tech does. They don't want to do what Indiana does. They want to do in their best optimal world what they think is best for Texas. And they've tried to pull it off, and it just hasn't happened to the extent that anybody would want. They have to close on Cam Coleman. They've got to get these offensive linemen. They have to get some linebackers. At the end of the day, nobody wants to hear me make excuses for the coaches. We are beyond tell us about the labor pains. We are officially in the show us the baby. No. I know. You told us yesterday it was a 20-hour labor and blah, 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 blah. You're here. You're okay. Where's the baby? And so I get it, but this has been one of the more fascinating weeks of me professionally covering this program, Chad, just because of the newness of it all. It's real easy. A whole year can go by and you just feel like, well, I saw everything that happened. I've seen before. This is just like this year. This is just like that year. We just had a name pop up before we came on the air. And I was like, that's just like Cleve Bryant. Like, there's always an example of something from somebody, except this doesn't. Next year, I'm going to be able to compare it to this. This year, I have nothing to compare it to, and neither does anybody in the Texas football offices. And I think, given how important this all is, I think it's turned out to be a real problem. I don't think they fully know why their plan's not working, which is problematic. Because how do you get things to start working if you haven't completely been able to identify why it's not? And Texas is offering players more money than the schools that they're choosing, and they're not taking Texas's money. I can't say to what degree that's happening with every player that Texas has lost, but we had multiple sources. In fact, it's out in the ether, Chad. We had a third-party, non-Power 4 school coach reach out to us today to say, hey man, I hear Texas is trying to spend a bunch of money and they keep, like, it's just, everybody's talking about it. It's in the ether that whatever is happening, Texas isn't winning guys by just. And isn't this what fans not of Texas? But isn't this what fans of every other fan base want to hear? They came after the 2 Michigan guys, and the 2 Michigan guys ultimately were content with raises, not all of the money that they could get, but they stayed loyal to old maize and blue. That sounds like what everybody bemoans college. That's just what happened.
Yeah.
Has not been able to be Darth Vader yet. And I think they thought being Darth Vader will be easy, and it hasn't been.
I got a couple of super chats. Also, a reminder: Brian Jones of CBS Sports coming up here in like 8 minutes, basically at the
playoff game tonight.
At the 30-minute mark, we're going to talk semifinals. Also, I gotta ask, because Brian every once in a while talks to people. I just wonder if Brian's got any portal insight. I'll just start there. He'll probably blow me off, and we'll talk Ole Miss Miami. But I just feel like it may be necessary.
Oh, he's gonna.
He's got to have something, right?
Just say Brian, because we've heard him talk about the portal.
Yes, right.
So just go, Brian. Portal opened up last Friday. Today's day number 7. Thoughts? We may not have to ask anything the rest of the next 20 minutes.
Yeah, you're right. You are right. It may happen. We'll grab some of those super chats. Also, another reminder, mention Specs. You can always get Deep Eddy Vodka at Specs if you need to get stocked up. Also, the Deep Eddy Vodka tasting room is out there in beautiful Dripping Springs. Take advantage of this warmer weather we're having in January right now. Get on out there, have some great cocktails, have that awesome barbecue, Crimson Creek Smokehouse barbecue right there on site. Remember to bring those mason jars back for a discounted refill at Deep Eddy Vodka, the tasting room out there where we have been a couple times. Got a few super chats here. Let me see. Where's that bigger money? It's right here with Matthew. $9.99. Are we headed for more NFL type of roster? They only have 53. Could we end up with 65? More money for more quality players? Or am I just trying to convince myself of that to feel better? Wow.
I don't think we're seeing them go to 53. I mean, I don't know how it works.
It can't be that.
And there's going to be lawsuits, and it's just the idea that there was already an outcry when they went down to 105. You're suggesting essentially cutting the roster in half. There's no collective bargaining agreement. It feels problematic. But I don't know. We'll see. I maybe there eventually are roster limits. I think. Look, you can always get to 105 by handing out walk-on spots. You can. Yeah. You can. As far as more money for more quality players on paper, you have to have a plan to execute. And then, yes, it's absolutely possible. It remains to be seen whether or not the plan is good enough to stack the roster in 6 months the way that, in theory, you would want to. And no, I don't think you're just trying to say that to convince yourself. I think you would be trying to convince yourself of that if you just blindly said, oh, we've got the plan, we're going to do it. I think there's a little bit more ambiguity with regards to what the hell is actually going to happen, not just over the course of the next 9 days, but this process goes all the way in through the summer. You can keep adding guys. You can go the JUCO route. There will be thousands of players in the portal that won't land in spots by January 16th that your scouting department can comb through, who has traits and qualities that might be something that we can work with. It will continue to go on. And I will say, this is where having a guy like Jim Nagy at Oklahoma, when you get to this spot, right? And I don't know that this is where hiring Jim Nagy to be your general manager is the best idea, but boy, having a Jim Nagy in a important role so that when you get to January 8th and you go, okay, we still have a lot of work to do to get our numbers up the way that we want them to go. We're going to have to add a lot of guys that aren't at the top of everybody's first lists. Do we have somebody with a skill set that can help us win the second and third phases of portal activity? You would think that having a really good scouting department, that's all they do and focus on, would help you in that regard. And look, I think it's one of the things about the Texas front office that we've had questions about. And this is a real good opportunity for Brandon Harris. the general manager of the Longhorns to prove that there's a plan, that they didn't just go into this with, we'll get the 2 Michigan guys. Well, how do you get the 2 Michigan guys? We'll pay them more money than anybody. Okay, that makes sense. You're just going to pay. You're going to make them an offer they can't refuse. But what if they do refuse? Well, in The Godfather, you put a horse's head in their bed. Spoiler alert. In this, you're kind of left with like, well, it better be. The answer has to be, well, then we have a backup plan. Now we look to see what I think the A plan looked great, but they didn't pull it off. Now we wait to see what the B plan looks like. I'm not overreacting at all because there's still time left for guys to enter the portal. Texas does have a lot of money, and like, look, the word is out. If you're a pretty good player and you're not locked up for next year, you probably should have your agent kick the tires on Texas. So I think you'll see some people laughing at Texas on January 8th. Maybe it's deserved. They have missed. Publicly, everybody knows they've missed on some guys. But this won't be as funny if they do close on Cam Coleman. This won't be as funny if they close on the linebacker from Cal that just entered that was an all ACC. So, you know what I mean? If they get the offensive line sorted out, we may get to February and go, oh, Texas really made themselves better. But we ain't there yet, and I would say I understand. Somebody said on a scale of 1 to 10, Chad, where would I rank my concern level and where would I rank my panic level?
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, well, my concern level would be like at 11.
Right.
I am always concerned. That is part of my DNA. I mean, you're talking about a guy that spent an entire offseason 2 years ago talking about Texas needed to get a punter out of the portal because you couldn't trust Michael Kern to do the job. I talked about it all offseason. What did everybody else say? Oh, catch. Texas never even got a punt. In the end, A, it didn't matter. They still made the playoffs, made the Final Four. Punting never really impacted any of the games in a way that the conversation came up. But B, I was right. Michael Kern lasted a year, transferred, went somewhere else, then transferred from there. I was right.
Yeah. And I would tell people to go look at the 2 Georgia games and field position, but that's another discussion.
Well,
if you want to really,
there's layers to this, Chad.
yeah, if you want to nitpick it, you can, because you were not wrong to bring it up. And I think there were examples of why you were
Texas
bringing it up.
does have an offensive lineman on campus right now.
Yeah.
And
when you say his name and when you say his school, Texas fans are not going to get excited.
well, they shouldn't get excited, but they need bodies.
Yep.
So
And
if you
that's what
tell
it's
me
gonna-
Texas signed 6 guys and this guy's one of 6 and he's like 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th best guy, because they need bodies. I told somebody the new slogan I think Texas football fans need to learn is, hey, we need to get us some Cole Hudsons. You got, at this point, like, beggars can't be choosy. They need to get guys that are serviceable enough that you can play games. Texas beat 3 top 10 teams this year with the offensive line that they had. But we know they kind of got by. We know they probably lost the Florida game because of it. We know it wasn't good enough. Well, we know it's not good enough to win a national championship. They're losing so much experience. They need better players than Dylan Sikorsky from Oregon State. Redshirt freshman, offensive lineman, started 6 games for Oregon State. Didn't allow a sack all season. That's the good news.
Mm-hmm.
The bad news, he's a little light in the britches. And I'm just looking at a picture of him playing in a game, and he looks like he needs another redshirt season or 2. But the good news is this guy would be a redshirt offensive lineman. You can see where this would be replacing some of the guys that have left with a developmental prospect that you might be able to get. You can get him on the field. I think the guy's the kind of guy that they need to be signing. But you shouldn't get excited. It's replacing Daniel Cruz or somebody of that level who wasn't going to play at all this season with a guy that's same age, not the same position automatically, but comes with experience and has shown a higher ceiling through the same stage and trajectory. So this would be like one of these, would you trade Dylan Sikorsky right now, given what he's done for Daniel Cruz, who just went in the portal? And to that, you would say, yeah, I don't even know if Daniel Cruz is a player at this level. I do know that Dylan Sikorsky is a guy that has played major college football. Now, I will say this. I went to his Pro Football Focus grade chart, and I did not realize he's 6'4", 332, which he doesn't look that big. Maybe he's just tall. I don't know. Maybe this is not him. The guy that I'm looking at does not look 332. His PFF grades are pretty terrible, but he's a redshirt freshman who played over 400 snaps this year. And here are the teams that he played against.
Yeah.
To be fair, Oregon State's schedule wasn't light. They played Cal, Fresno, Texas Tech, and Oregon in back-to-back weeks. Houston, Appalachian, Wake Forest. I don't even know who the hell LAF is. Maybe Louisiana Lafayette. I'm not sure. And then Washington State. And his grades weren't good. But that guy probably at a program like Texas or Georgia is redshirting another year. And we're probably just talking about him like, yo, they think Dylan Sikorsky looks. So, I will get excited about something like this because I'm looking at this and going, 3 years of eligibility remaining. He might really kick in 2027 and 2028. And in 2026, he could legitimately give you some depth. If you can get better players in front of him, you can see the makings of the first step in, okay, now what? Keep going. But just because this guy's not ready to be a starter at Texas, and he's not, this guy can't start at Texas right away. But he could be a really solid contributor, a depth piece this year. And then in the long-term future, I think you're probably looking at a guy that could grow into an NFL player. That's what I think. If you are a redshirt freshman with his size and you're playing as a redshirt freshman that many snaps, it's my Christian Jones rule. Remember Christian Jones sucked for a while?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody hated Christian Jones. It was like, get him off the field. He shouldn't be at Texas. And I did a podcast after his sophomore year, Chad, where we were on the modcast, and I said, Christian Jones will play in the NFL. And everybody on the modcast looked at me like I was an alien with 18 eyeballs on my forehead. And I was like, I know he's not there yet, but this guy's going to play in another 25, 26, 27, 28 major college football games. Eventually, he'll be a grown man and he'll be respectable. That's what I think this guy's kind of floor is. By the time you get to the end of his career, he should have played so much football that the floor for him should be that guy could probably play at Indiana.
Yeah. All right, Catch. Brian's waiting, but
is he? I'm sorry.
Hang on. Double check your portal stuff. Let me pay a bill. I think there's another portal guy we got to talk about leaving Texas. So double check that while I'm talking a little Hayes City store here, and then we will talk to Brian. A lot going on here on this Thursday. Hayes City store is out there in Driftwood. If you've heard us talk about it, you know where you're headed. We've had different people in the chat go try the chicken fried steak, go try the chicken fried pork chop, go try the grilled pork chop, the blackened pork chop, the incredible pizza. The burgers are amazing. Those truck stop enchiladas is what got the conversation started with Catch and enchiladas. At some point, he's got to go have those. That's the irony. That's what started Catch on enchiladas, but he hasn't actually had those yet. At one point, we'll get him out to Hayes City store for some enchiladas. Go enjoy this warm weather out there. They got a great ice house area. If it gets a little warm, they've got fans. If it gets a little cold, they've got heaters. It's a wonderful environment out there. Never be in a hurry, like I always say. Go on out there. Tell Travis, Tamara, and the crew that we said hello at Hayes City Store out in Driftwood. Tell them you heard about it here on OB Live. All right. So, Catch, before we get to Brian, real quick, am I right that we got to mention another name here?
Yeah, Jamie French has been confirmed by multiple parties that the true freshman, former five-star wide receiver out of Florida, is in the NCAA portal. Again, not a name that should shock anybody. He redshirted this year, didn't show much, if we're being completely honest, didn't make a play in a game all season, didn't project based on what we had seen and the lack of buzz behind the scenes about what he was showing. Didn't automatically look like a guy that was going to be in the top 5 or 6 in the position next year. They paid him a lot of money as a recruit. My guess is there was a conversation that sounded a whole lot like, hey, we would love to have you back, but we can't pay you a starter revenue share tag or NIL bill or however they would want to slot it for a guy that is a developmental project for us right now. And they're having a lot of these kind of conversations, I think, in these last 48 hours. And Jamie French is probably, for a lot of reasons, not just the money, but I think from a playing standpoint, that guy didn't come to Texas to be 7th on the depth chart going into year 2, but that's kind of where he sits. So, no, it's disappointing because that guy's got a lot of talent, and you would hope that eventually, once he starts to tap into it, if he ever does, that he would do it at the school that recruited and landed him. But we don't live in a world of probably as we bring Brian in, we can just start here. We don't live in a world of patience anymore. If you're not playing by year 1 at the end of it, there's not a lot of guys, Brian, that are just trying to hang out and see what patience provides them.
Exactly. And I don't know what's going on with my background here, guys. Always something with me, right?
Brian,
You look like Bijan Robinson.
There we go. I fixed it.
Look at you.
Yes.
Did
yes.
we just
Go back. You had like a little mohawk strip. It made you look like Bijan.
Man, we just saw Brian Jones tech support for the very first time. That was awesome. Well done. One thing, you're like, what's wrong with my background? Bam.
Boom.
I never noticed Brian's hair until he had that backdrop off, and then I realized he could be Bijan's daddy.
I wish I was. I would take that job. Exactly, man. But you took the words out of my mouth, Catch. I was just about to say patience. There is not. And who am I to sit here and act as though I would have any if I was in these situations? You know, I'm blue chip, go to UCLA. Now, we had a little NIL before there was NIL, and I was totally happy where I was, other than not being a Longhorn. The reason I transferred from a damn good program that was playing well to a program that was in the doldrums, Texas at the time. And I got nothing because SMU and the death penalty had really, let's say, cleared the landscape of any extra benefits. So I transferred out of just my heart's content to play at the University of Texas, even when they were down. But yeah, these kids these days, I think a ton of them, and Sark mentioned this maybe a week ago about some of these agents who are not certified. And in a lot of instances, it's mama, it's daddy, it's auntie, uncle, a friend of the family that's leading these young men. And a bunch of them are going to realize, as I always say, or as the song says, the grass isn't always greener. Sometimes the weeds are deeper. Now, are you afraid of competition? And you come to a school of this magnitude, are you thinking short term or are you thinking long term? And I understand the situation at home might be dire. I get it. And getting that big check can change your whole family's situation and change the trajectory of your existence. But you need to think long term. Okay, I want to get paid. I'm not where I want to be as far as the depth chart right now. Am I afraid of competition? Secondly, and this will be more prominent down the road, getting my education from this institution. Is that going to pay dividends for the rest of my damn life? Yes. I moved back here 2 years ago, and I can't tell you how profound it was from a business standpoint, just being able to pick up the damn phone and get shit accomplished because people know me. I ain't no Vince Young. I ain't no Derek Johnson. I ain't even close to being as talented as those guys were. But I played at the University of Texas, man. And you can link and tap into all those relationships because I know one thing they're preaching on these recruiting trips is a family atmosphere. Well, you know what you do once you're done and you've got that degree in hand and you might need a little help getting into a particular door. You go test that shit. You go say, all right, when I signed on the dotted line, you said we had a family atmosphere here in Texas. You said I'm a Longhorn forever. I need a little assistance. I'm not asking for a handout. I'm asking for, hey, can you connect me to this person? Can you get me in front of this person? And then I can stand on my own 2 feet. But can you help me get in the door? And I can't tell you how many times, man, just moving back a year ago and little mundane things, getting them accomplished because I could pick up the phone and either I'm a degree of separation or 2 or 3 degrees of separation because of that Longhorn lineage.
It's a big deal. Texas needs it to be a big deal. It hasn't quite been as big a deal maybe as they need it to be. Brian,
I'm not just talking Texas. I'm not just talking I'm talking to any institution these kids are where their feet are now. That's what I'm saying. And I understand sometimes coaches leave, and the reason you were there because that coach was there, then you might want to leave. But if you're sitting there and you're afraid of competition, or I'm not getting a fair shake, well, maybe your ass sucks. Maybe you stink. How about you look in the mirror and see if the issue is you and not them? And then, these guys coming and asking for all this money. Ain't nothing wrong with asking. Ray Charles said, Mama said ain't nothing wrong with talking. But you have to have a better idea of who you are and a realistic idea of what your talents are. And, Travion or Quintravian Weiser, $1 million. First of all, dude, what, an hour before the team plane is about to take off? If that's true, that's just ridiculous. But I'm saying he thought he could leverage that. And I can see why, considering what happened to Coach Terry with a couple of basketball players prior to the home game versus Tennessee last year, going in and saying, we need an extra $100K or we're not playing. I would have told them motherfuckers, kick rocks. You stink anyway. You already signed on the dotted line. Here's your contract. And if you don't want to live up to it, bye. And then after they left, I would have gone into that locker room and I would have told everybody remaining, here's what just transpired. Now, if you feel as those two do, you can leave too. Because I'm going to get fired. I'm going to get fired on my own accord, not because I'm going to allow you young cats to hold me hostage. So Quintravion, I think he asked for $1 million. He got maybe $750 from Florida State. Good. But have a realistic understanding of who you are and what your talents, what they are is the point I'm trying to make. And whether you're at Texas or somewhere else, and stop thinking short term, think long term.
Brian, so far in this particular portal, there is a notion out there that Texas has offered more money for some of these key guys they wanted, and the guy ends up going to the other school. I've always talked about be Texas, grab that checkbook and do what you do. I just figured if Texas offers more money, they'd go to Texas. That's not what we're seeing, though. I know Texas would love an answer. Can you explain it?
Maybe they didn't like the fit. Maybe they didn't like the scheme until we have a conversation with those guys. Who knows? Without being in that room, maybe this coach they had a better rapport with. That happens all the time. So money. Good to know that money's not ruling all these decisions, and that's a positive in this whole this experiment that we're dealing with.
Until you're the one with more money going, wait a minute, take my money.
It's funny that you said that, because I was having this conversation 30 minutes ago with somebody, and I go, the rest of the country, that's an example that the system's not broke, that the kids didn't take the most amount of money so that they still. Yep. But if you're trying to be Darth Vader and money whip people and they won't take your money, it's not what you want to hear.
Yeah. So I would love to drill a little deeper and understand why they aren't. Maybe it's just a better fit elsewhere, and they like what's happening there. I don't get it. I know if I was to come here and see Austin and the amount of resources that this program has at its beck and call, it'd be hard to say no. But hey, I'm a Texas kid, and I bled Texas orange from day one. So I guess I would be an outlier because these kids are coming from elsewhere looking at Texas. But I'm sure some of these kids were recruited by Texas before they signed at their school where they are currently. So they have some familiarity with the program.
All right, Brian, as hard as it is for some people to believe, either Miami or Ole Miss is going to be in the championship game. The old saying is defense wins championships. If I tell you, I think Miami might just keep doing it. You buy that?
Yes, I am now after what they did to Ohio State, because I didn't believe they could run the rock in the manner in which they did. And Mark Fletcher Jr. and even Carson Beck at times just throwing his body into the chaos to pick up first downs, critical first downs, Yes, I think they have had a hell of a scheme. They have controlled the offensive line and the defensive line. And you look at Ohio State, their last 2 ball games, what they've allowed? 10 sacks, 11 sacks. Indiana, and then Miami last week. So, yeah, that defensive line, if they continue to play in the manner in which they have, get you in 3rd and long, you're going to have some fits going up against those guys. And if they can continue to run the ball and Carson Beck can make great decisions, I am not surprised one iota that Miami's in it. And I take back all I said about Cristobal when they lost to SMU. I said, maybe he can't coach because he keeps losing games similar to this. You know, you go back to Georgia Tech a couple of times and other mismanaged ball games. I say, hell, he can't coach. And yet he has righted the ship since that loss in Dallas. And look where they sit now, 1 game away from playing for a national title. So he figured something out. He hung his hat on that offensive line, which he went out in a mask a couple of years ago, and they're playing lights out right now. So, no, not shocked whatsoever. Ole Miss, Trinidad Chambliss has been singing his praises since he stepped in for Austin Simmons. He is electric. I mean, this guy is just such a stud, man. It's amazing to watch him. He's magical. You can't get a bead on him. Keeps his wits about him even under pressure. And defensively, for them to get some stops versus Georgia, that was surprising. I didn't think that would occur. But Golding's defense found a way to rise up and stop Georgia. So both of these teams, man, and Ole Miss, with everything that's surrounding that program and has been surrounding this program for the latter part of the regular season and now week to week into this playoff where who's going to coach, who's not going to coach. And that's a testament to that locker room and those guys staying focused and locked in.
Yeah, that's a great story. I'm rooting for Ole Miss, but I think I'm picking Miami ultimately in that game. Brian, what about the Indiana-Oregon rematch? The game in Outson was a crazy one. What about part 2?
It was fun. It was so much fun, man. Being there on site for that was definitely a treat. I think Indiana can get them again. Tech had its opportunities versus this Oregon team. Tech's defense came to ball, and they did exactly that. They didn't get any help whatsoever from their offense. Of course, 4 turnovers, hard to overcome. But look at all the field goals they held Oregon to when they got in the red zone. That tells you that this defense is legit for Texas Tech, and Oregon's got some issues offensively. If they can face a defense such as that, and they will face another one, a team they had issues with their only loss on the season there in October. And going into that game, I think Dante Moore had been sacked maybe 3 times. Hell, they got him 4 or 5 in that one, did Indiana. And they are a machine. They remind me of how Nick Saban's Alabama teams were. It was like, what's that? What was, what's the Valvoline commercial where they used to have the Pistons firing back and forth? Remember that commercial? That's how this defense is. One guy gets his gap, next guy's in his gap. Boom, 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 boom. Everyone is where they're supposed to be. It's the most selfless team, I believe, out there. No one cares who gets the credit. And they're just precise defensively, offensively. Mendoza, speaking of using his legs, what he was able to do versus Alabama. And Herbstreit had the perfect description for this guy because we've been saying all season, he is awkward as hell when he runs. And Herbstreit says he's like a baby giraffe. Exactly. 6'5" dude with legs going all over the place. Crazy legs, but it's effective. And you talking about picking apart defenses, that cat is so smart, man. And the numbers don't have to be huge. What was he, 12 or 14? Not a lot of throws, not a ton of passing yardage, but they're on point. He's got the aim of William Tell.
Yes, he
Very,
does.
Matt Nordgren-esque. It's for the kids.
Oh, Matt, who had Matt Nordgren being inserted into the competition?
Matt Nordgren did. I'll tell you that right now.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
What's up, Matt? Matt, what's up, dog?
You dribbling fool.
I have like a 2-part question. The first one's like short, baby. Is Indiana the best team in the country?
Oh, I thought it was 2-part. You're going to give me one at a time.
I'm giving you the first part first.
Oh, yes.
Why? That's the second part.
Told you why.
What has made them the best team in the country?
Were you not listening? I just told you.
No, but like I know all of that, but this is a sport where for the most of the, almost not most, for all of the last 15 years or so, the teams with the most toys and the most talent win. Whether it was Ohio State, whether it's Alabama, whether it's Georgia, there have been an occasional anomaly, right? Michigan did it their own way that nobody else, I think, could replicate, and probably them as well, but they were able to do it. But it's Georgia, it's Alabama, it's Ohio State. It's the way Texas is trying to do it. In Indiana, I think I'm with you, Brian. I think they're the best team in the country, but has the sport declined to the point where the rosters aren't what they used to be and Alabama and Georgia aren't Alabama and Georgia anymore? How have they cut into this process that they have never been able, or nobody has ever been able to really cut through before?
So you're saying they've regressed to the mean?
I'm asking. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out.
All right, I'm going to answer, motherfucker, because you disrespecting Indiana. All right, how about that? I'm a Hoosier now.
Wow.
Who's your daddy? It's Indiana. That's who your daddy. No, they win in the trenches the same way those teams used to win in the trenches. Now, Georgia, did they have those badass pass rushes they've had in the previously? No, but they were still dang good. And all those 5 stars and 4 stars, they're not all cut from the same cloth. And we've seen that at Bama. When you continue to amass them, but are they as good as the previous 5-star and 4-star? Not always, are they? Here's the other deal. And here's the real reason Nick Saban and Miss Terry left the game, because they got a level playing field now, motherfucker. You ain't got all the NIL money, Saban, Kirby Smart, everybody now, if they can find it, can go out and pay these players. So all they do is ask for money. Dude, them motherfuckers was giving. NIL's always been there. Let's just say that. When he was at LSU,
says a man who knows firsthand that there's NIL in college.
I know.
And real quick, the chat did just bring up Mr. Cuban. That might be an interesting factor to keep in mind too.
Thank
in Indiana,
you.
that Mark Cuban is now writing some checks.
There you go. Exactly. So now you got Indiana and all those donors, big wigs who's been on the sideline and probably just focuses on basketball, and not even that here of late. So now they are been injected into the system because you got a viable championship football team. So the reason they're winning, they are winning in the trenches. They own the line of scrimmage. You see the way they run the rock? That's how Bama used to run the rock, man. That's how Georgia runs the rock. Those guys, Black and Henby, and these are transfers, and also the development. Most of those guys, those starters came from JMU. So they won championships at JMU. They transitioned to FBS. Now JMU was FBS too now, but they transition to the Big Ten, and they continue to get better. No one stays stagnant. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. These guys have gotten better, and they play together. They're a cohesive unit. They win the line of scrimmage. They're fundamentally sound, and they don't make mistakes. Go back and look at how many penalties. I think 1, if that, versus Alabama. If that, it may have been 0. They don't turn the rock over. Now, in the first installment, you had the pick 6 by Fernando. Man, I'm watching this dude. You would have thought he had just thrown another touchdown the way he reacted. It was just shook it off, led his team right down the field. They got everything you want at every position. Every level of that defense is a level of agitation. They got the guys to cover you. They got the backers that can bring you down. They got the guys on the D-line that can go get you. That's why. What's the second part of your question, son?
Wow. He asked you to say that. You just gave him the second part. It's the why.
Oh, was that the second? What was the second part? I'm sorry.
No, it was. Are they the best team? And then why? And you just laid out the why perfectly.
Oh, shit.
You actually cursed me out when I said it. You were like,
Yeah.
I just told you, motherfucker. Like,
Yeah.
you not remember that part?
All right.
I do remember the motherfucker. Yes.
Catch. Do you have anything else for this motherfucker? Or are we done? By the way, Brian, my apology.
I love it. Huh?
Brian, my apology on the technical side. I could not get the damn image to load up. So I'm just going to tell people to go to the co-op and check out the Real Snow Milk gear that you've seen Brian wear on the show at times. I just can't show him the picture, unfortunately. So imagine Brian in some badass Longhorn gear that you've got to have.
I'm more technically sound than you today.
You are. You out-teched me today, so I apologize for that. But go to universitycoop.com, search Real Snow Milk, or just get over to the co-op, the legendary co-op on the drag, and get yourself some of that gear. Brian Jones sounds like he might be leaning towards that Indiana-Miami final.
I'm leaning for Indiana. I said they would win it all. I was envisioning a rematch versus Ohio State or Indiana and Georgia. So I think Indiana, top to bottom, tip to toe, man. These cats, they're just good. They're fun to watch. It's just
they are,
and it's not that deceptive either. What they do, they run it straight at your ass downhill in the run game. They might employ an RPO here, there, and then those receivers, whether it's Charlie Becker now or Surratt or it's Cooper. Come on, and you got a brother named Kolakowski. Or Kowalski. What? I mean, what the fuck? What is going on, America?
And your quarterback,
these black Polish tight ends. What the hell?
And your quarterback's named Fernando Mendoza, and he gollies everything like Tim Tebow, and it's just crazy. It's crazy.
Dude,
they're amazing. Brian, always a pleasure, sir. We'll reach out to you next week. We got all kinds of portal crap to talk about. Thank you, sir.
Oh my goodness, this portal gonna make your head explode.
I know it is. That's Brian Jones, looking like Bijan's dad from CBS Sports.
His hair, he's got the same. They have the same haircut.
He really did. All right, we got some super chats that are piled up, but before we do that, Catch, before we talk to Brian, you talked about Jamie French. Is there anything else you wanted to hit, or do you want to start cleaning up these super chats?
No, let's clear off the super chats.
Okay, let's start with $10 here. Michael directs this one towards you. If you knew how agents and players were working this portal period relative to the past, what would you do different? Focus more on retention, go after people actually visiting other schools? Interesting question from Michael.
I think the biggest thing, I'm gonna spend some time giving this more thought than like a snap decision here on the show. Like, it's a question that I'm getting a lot. Mm-hmm. I think one of the first things that I would say right now is they just need to have more lines. Whenever I would go crabbing out in the Chesapeake Bay when I was a teenager, I'd go to Philadelphia, we'd go to Baltimore, we'd hit the Chesapeake Bay. You don't just put out like one trap and then wait 30 minutes and then pull the trap up.
Right.
And it's like, oh, we got one or we didn't get one. And then you just drop. No, you've got lines everywhere. And you know what? You check one, there's not a crab in it. You don't really even worry about it. You just drop it back down. There will be other crabs. I think one of the things that it appears to have happened is that they were so convinced that they were going to get the two king crabs that they wanted that when they didn't, there hasn't been a backup plan that's evident that suggests this is how we're going to fix the offensive line. Now, the thing that they do have going for them, the portal doesn't. This is a question that's better to be asked on January 18th.
Yeah. Now, the biggest king crab's still out there in Cam Coleman, right? That's the biggest crab they're looking for.
Yeah, but even in a world where, let's say you don't get Cam Coleman, could you then call Bryant Wesco up and say, I don't know if you've heard this, but we're throwing around millions for a number one wide receiver. Do you want to take our millions? And Bryant Wesco, there are those we were seeing day by day, as evidenced by the fact that Jamie French just jumped into the portal, and a guy like Quincy Porter, who was a 5-star offensive lineman at Ohio State, who everybody in the country wanted a year ago. Well, he didn't get a lot of playing time this year, and they probably went to him and said, we probably can't keep paying you whatever the hell we paid you last year. So he's in the portal, and now there's a lot of ways of doing this, but I think there's just a fully developed plan and then a backup plan to the plan and then a backup plan to the backup plan that I just feel like Texas is needing to call on right now. And I'm not saying they're failing, Chad or Michael. What I'm saying is that the jury is out big time on that one, and that a lot has to happen, or it will look like the answer to this question will be not more retention, because they're still not really losing a lot of guys that they're upset about losing. They've lost some guys that they didn't want to lose, They haven't really lost anybody that you would look at and go, that guy was definitely going to be a starter next year. The closest thing to that would probably be Trey Wisner, who would not start over Malik Brown. But I think if you paired those two guys together, you'd have a really good combination. But then Derek Cooper is coming in. So you could make a case that Trey Wisner finished his career as the starting running back at Texas, but they had been planning to put him in a number 3 role going into this season. And then the only other guy that you would look at and say that guy is kind of starter-ish was Parker Livingston. But I looked, he played the most snaps in the bowl game, but he didn't start. The starting trio of receivers in that game was Emmett Mosley, Ryan Wingo, and Dalen McCutcheon. He got passed up on the depth chart mid-season by Emmett Mosley once Mosley got healthy. So again, there's some critical depth. And Bo Barnes is another example of a guy that you would look at and go, super blue chip guy, might play in the NFL one day, but was he going to be a starter next year? Probably not, because even if he hadn't gone into the portal, and he may pull himself out of the portal. In fact, I think I saw a report that he had, but we haven't confirmed that yet. But he comes back, what he really is a piece for the future, a piece for depth. That is not going to stop them from feeling like they still need to sign 3 or 4 linebackers, a couple of which probably need to be at least starter level good.
Michael, thank you for that super chat. Here's another $10 super chat, $9.99. Fly for white guy. Catch with a little over a week left in the portal window. Knowing what you know now, what needs to happen between now and next Friday for you to call it a successful portal for Texas? I think so many Texas fans are probably thinking a version of this right now, Catch.
In order of importance, they have to sign 4 to 5 offensive linemen. They don't all have to be. This is what we talked about last year with this offensive line group. They don't have to be all Big 12. They don't have to be all SEC. They don't have to be all Big 10. They have to be better than the worst guys that you're currently leaning on to put on the field. And we know last year that Texas had some guys that just made them non-competitive. So they've got to find some guys, at worst, like 5 or 6 of them that, oh my God, at least 4. Like they really, I don't know who the backup center is on this team. I don't know who the starting guard. There's a lot that needs to be addressed. They don't all have to be studs. And we just talked about this guy from Oregon State. Like that guy can be a part of a group for sure. They got to get a couple guys better than him. They just do. I think they've got to get a big-time wide receiver. They lacked playmakers all season long. We can't pretend that wasn't something that we talked about all season long. And if it's not Ryan Wingo, and now if it's not Malik Brown, who are making the big plays for this offense? They need a number 1 receiver. Cam Coleman is the obvious guy, but if they don't get Cam Coleman, I think they still have to go. They have to address wide receiver. It's the position where they've had the most of mass exodus at this point. They've lost DeAndre McNeil. They've lost Ryan Livingston. They've lost Jamie French. I mean, the names kind of go on, and who knows? They may not be done yet. Like there's a lot of young guys. What does Khalil Lockett do? Does he stay? He's a guy that you would absolutely want to keep. But if I said, does that guy absolutely impact the 2026 season in a way that determines whether or not you make the playoffs or play for a championship or any of those things? The answer is probably no. So there are layers to all of this, but they've got to get offensive linemen. They've got to get a wide receiver. They've got to get a couple of linebackers. They've got to sign, I think, another running back. I think they need a backup quarterback. I might still go for another tight end. They need to boost the depth. They could sign 10 more guys and they'd still only be sitting at 85. And I know that Sark says they don't want to go to 105. They need more players. So,
because that's the other thing. As we're talking today, the number of guys out has gone up to what, 22, I think it is, and the guys coming in is still at 6.
Well, and
7?
that's not a statistical anomaly, right? For everybody else, it goes back to what I said earlier. Texas and probably Ohio State this year as well are kind of learning how the other 98% live. That every year there's going to be turnover that Texas has been able to mitigate and limit. But at some point, it was like they're running out of Sarkisian guys or Tom Herman guys that can be kicked out of the program. We're going to start getting to the point where the guys that exit the program are Sarkisian guys. And well, when you sign a bunch of top 3, top 2, top 1 recruiting classes, your depth, your guys in the 85, a lot of them have brand name value. Jamie French. But in reality, it is like driving a new car off the lot. Jamie French is value to the Texas football program right now upon his departure was at least half that the day he committed, because that's the part where he has to show up and be good. They paid him to get him here. They paid him to be good. He wasn't good in the 1 year that he was here. And are they rushing judgment? Is he rushing judgment? These are things that history, I suppose, will provide answers to in the next 3 or 4 years. But this is the conundrum of major college football now. You pay a guy, and I think Texas has adjusted to this. We saw them lose recruits at the end of the cycle that they just let walk away. Max Wright is a perfect example. They needed him from an offensive line standpoint, but they understood. If we pay this guy what the market says he's worth, he's going to come here. We're going to pay him that every year he's here. And then we have to wait for him in 3 years to even find out if he's any good and can play at this level, right? If he's good to play at Indiana, you got to be 23 years old. Well, it takes a while, right? You got to pay that guy. Hey, is it any good? And I just think they're learning so many lessons that are new this year that, quite honestly, this is where having an incredibly experienced general manager this is why I said it was important. Because you get in a moment like this, and it helps. They don't make the best hotshot general or like soldier in the army. They don't make that guy a general. You have to be around for a while and have seen some stuff and done some stuff before they put you in charge of everything. I think Brandon Harris does a phenomenal job in a lot of the areas that he's asked to do things. But I think we've watched this week something that's less than a smooth running operation. It's not. It hasn't won. They're like they gambled. They picked their targets. They didn't get their targets. The expectation can't be that we watched that happen and then go, it didn't happen. I realize we live in a world really, like legitimately, where we watch things happen on camera and then we listen to somebody else tell us that it didn't happen. And then we go, I guess it didn't happen. Maybe there's a little bit of that in college athletics now, where it's like, we just saw them miss on a bunch of guys, and there have been really nobody else as backup candidates, and doesn't look like they were prepared. They were prepared. Okay. Well, since you said they were prepared, I guess they were prepared. Like, there will be some people that when this is over with won't be able to critically ask questions of how well did this process work. I don't know that it matters whether Michelle does it or Texas Longhorn does it or Kane Adams does it or Blake Ryan does it. Sark's got to do it when this thing's over with.
Yep.
And he's got to ask himself. And if the answer is yes, then cool, right? But if the answer is no, why not? What happened that has allowed us to be day 7 into the portal and so much isn't done? And I think the scary thing is, Chad, they feel it behind the scenes. For the most of this week, confidence has been sky high that, hey, just trust us. And a week from now, you'll see what we've done, and you'll be patting us on the back and telling us we're aces. The Michigan tackle, the Sprague kid, Sprague.
Yeah.
That was the kid that 2 days ago I was told, can't lose that guy though. Like, we lost the guard, didn't want that to happen. We haven't gotten the running backs that we wanted out of Louisville and Florida. Like, okay, we've taken some L's. Not going to get the Florida edge. But Sprague's the guy we need. Because I was told there's really not a backup that does what he does, which would be come in, be potentially an immediate starter at tackle, 3 years of eligibility, might help you move Brandon Baker inside. The guy that we're talking about from Oregon State, you're not moving Brandon Baker inside to get that guy on the field. Right? You're not moving anybody. Like, he's not that good, but he could help. But they got to get some guys that you can say realistically, oh, we can do some things with our starting lineup I don't think those answers exist yet. Pull some rabbits out of the hat, and they're right. We'll pat them on the back in a week from now. I'm not beating anybody up yet and saying anybody needs to be fired or anybody has failed. I'm saying all we can do is comment on what we've seen so far. And based on what we've seen so far, it would appear to leave a lot to be desired. But let's see. One Cam Coleman and pulling one offensive tackle from the portal out of Ole Miss or something, who's a starter. And this whole thing feels a lot different. If in 2 days Cam Coleman commits and they get a starting offensive lineman out of the portal that everybody feels really good about, then suddenly it's like, oh, well, maybe all that matters is the bottom line and not how we felt about things 7 days in.
All right, last $10 super chat I see. Back to Cam Coleman. If one of the schools involved in the Coleman sweepstakes were to call his agent and ask what number it would take to shut things down, would that do it? Which of the schools would do that? Well, Ketch, you've been saying Texas would do that. If it comes to that, Texas is ready to throw that number, right?
At the risk, it's funny. Sometimes when sources say things to you, I feel like sometimes I have sources that I know talk to other people in the industry from a media standpoint because I'll have been told the exact same thing. And I will have guarded against the source. And then somebody else will just come out and say the exact thing that I was trying to be protective of. This may happen here, but I did have a source tell me a number that Texas, I think, would be willing. I had a source tell me a number that Texas wouldn't blink at. Mm-hmm. And it made me think that the answer to this question would be, I think Texas is going to offer. This is the way to answer the question. I believe when the dust settles, that Texas will offer Cam Coleman the most lucrative financial offer of all the schools that are recruiting him. What Texas doesn't know is whether or not that's enough.
Yeah, and if it's not for him, then it's, I guess, just going to add on to this conversation. If he joins the list of people that say no.
Yeah, but it's a little bit different there because Cam announced himself into the portal and is an obvious target. One of the big things that Texas has done that really is different from every other school in the country that I've been paying attention to, and believe me, I've been paying attention to all of them. Texas is the only school that I can see that targeted really big ticket, big hunt game with the idea of we're the reason why you're going into the portal. They focus their efforts primarily on very specific targets that other schools weren't even messing with. Nobody else was calling these Michigan kids. Texas was on top of that. But, I think that it was a theory of if we do it like this, we can revolutionize the way people do the portal. And they swung and missed. And you know what it feels like? Hey, I once upon a time launched a podcast network called The Yak that I'm convinced it was a great idea. And if executed properly would still be a great idea. I came up with the idea though at a time when nobody was paying for podcasts. So the idea of charging people for podcasts and that type of content, people just weren't down with it. But I still think the thing's a great idea. When you have your great ideas matters as much as did you ever have a great idea? I once was at I was once at a Whataburger after a night at Dallas nightclub. I don't remember being drunk, but I'm going to tell you a comment here in a second that's going to just assume that I had been legally intoxicated, but I don't even know if that was the case because, I'm not a big drinker. But I was coming from Dallas nightclub. We were at the Whataburger off of Anderson. And I'm sitting there one night. We're all eating our Whataburger. And I go, do you know what sounds good? Now, this actually won't shock you because I'm the man that had never had enchiladas.
Right.
But I'm at Whataburger. And I'm like, it's 2:00 in the morning. We're all eating our food. God damn, do you know what sounds good? What if you took tortillas and then put a bunch of cheese in it and then put some chicken in there and then like made a sandwich out of it. And they were like, to quote the great Brian Jones, what he would have said if he were there. Yeah, motherfucker. They call that a quesadilla.
And they have for a minute now.
At which point I learned what a quesadilla was in my 20s,
There you go.
which is very similar to learning what an enchilada is in your 40s.
They don't teach everything in Waco.
But it doesn't mean that I didn't have the idea. And way back when, before people started making quesadillas, that would have been a great idea.
Would have been. We got some super chats to we do have some super class chats to clean up. The phrase all in was mentioned in the chat earlier, so let me throw a little hijack poker at you as well. Texas Card House, our presenting sponsor each and every day, brings you online poker at hijackpoker.com. Scan that QR code, put it on any device you want, and get to playing. Ketch will jump in there. Alex Dunlap jumps in there. Our man Tom G jumps in there. Get on in there and get to playing today. All right, let's see here. Ketch, how about this one? $4.99 from Big Bird. I know there's more additions coming, but they've got to get more of the top tier guys. I would take 2 solid O linemen over Coleman in a heartbeat right now. Yeah, overcoming the offensive line thing, Ketch, is so huge at this point, and I just that's the one that keeps blinking to me. I don't know how they overcome what just happened to them at offensive line, because we didn't see names early other than the Michigan guys, and then you missed both. Then there was like, I don't even know if they were thinking of that LSU guy, but then he was gone. We just haven't heard a whole lot of names, and then when we hear them, it's kind of like, all right, okay. I don't know how they overcome it. That's a big concern right now.
There's lots of concerns.
Yeah. Yeah, there are.
There's a fire taking place. This cannot be the "this is fine" meme. We got to get some people in there putting out some fires. Save the house.
Yeah. By the way, is this anywhere close to true? Justin, $5. Sprague chose to make $700,000 less, not to be coached by Kyle Flood. Is there any thought that that's what happened?
I mean, that's the number I was told.
Oh my Lord!
Now, it's so large. I was told. I mean, I don't even know if I'm allowed to say what I was told. I don't know that I was.
I say, don't get yourself in trouble. I'm just asking.
I would just say that the numbers I heard, there was a very sizable difference between what Sprague took to return to Michigan versus what he would have been able to get paid if he had come to Texas.
Okay. I got you. Wow.
Now, look, is that real? I mean, I had somebody I trust tell me that, but could that person have fibbed a little bit? Maybe. Like I hate when we talk too much so specific about money, because it's like, I'll give you a perfect example. The Parker Livingston thing claims he got paid $800, his agent, right? Or however the hell, whoever told somebody that he got $800,000 because Kirk Bowles reported it, right? Mm-hmm. And then I hear, no, it wasn't anything less than that. It was $525. It was $550. And then in the end, like, people want to nitpick so much that we can't just do a ballpark. Or it's like, that's why I like to say it's like mid six figures ish, because, people, it was not $600,000. It was $575,000. Okay.
Right.
Okay. You got me. But people really will. And a lot of times too, I deal with that so much that, anyway.
All right. Oscar, $4.99. When I see how we fared compared to these other elite programs, I've realized that some Texas fans, including me, need to relax. Oscar going with the Aaron Rodgers treatment on this. It's not over yet. We know that. The 16th is not here yet, but Catch, I thought you did. I thought the comparison of words earlier is fair. There's a difference between concern and panic. Maybe there doesn't need to be panic, but good Lord, there should be concern.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, intellectually, you have to be wary of the differences, because I, as a parent, I was concerned I told my son last night, stop leaning on the railing upstairs. You can fall off the staircase and that'd just be it. You'd be dead. I wasn't in panic mode about it, but I didn't tell him to get off the railing because I didn't have concern. I am always concerned about things that might happen. So my concerns on a 1 to 10 scale stay at 11. My panic is less than that. I've seen Texas pull Derek Cooper out of a hat when Xavier Crowell commits to Alabama. And it's like, oh my God, Texas thought they were going to get Crowell. They thought they had a really good chance. What are they going to do at running back now? KJ Edwards went to A&M. They're missing out on everybody. Did you see? Sukumel just did an interview with Derek Cooper, and Derek Cooper said they're not even in his top 5. And then 2 weeks later, Derek Cooper commits to Texas, doesn't even take a visit. I've seen it happen. I seen it. But I don't ever prescribe to the idea that because I saw someone pull a rabbit out of their hat once, that every time they go for the hat, there's a rabbit inside. And I think we have to wait and see. What does Texas pull a rabbit out of their hat? Man, it is within their realm of possibilities. They've got money. They're trying to spend it. It would be naive of all of us to believe that somebody somewhere, and look, I'll give you the example. Antonio Williams, I think it was 2 of the Clemson wide receivers. When the discussion of how much money Cam Coleman stood to make in the portal, Antonio Williams of Clemson put some eyeball emojis like, whoa. And then Brian Wesco put some eyeball emojis on top of Antonio Williams's eyeball emojis. You could sense that every receiver in the country was like, well, wait. He only had like 800 yards receiving last year. What about Danny Scadero's like, I had 1,200 yards receiving. Can I just get a mill? So Texas will have everybody's attention. Not everybody will be available, but there's still, I think, a lot of shoes to drop in the portal. Just even missing on these offensive linemen, I think, has probably made Texas more emboldened of, well, we got to get Cam Coleman. Yeah. Perception. It can't look like we just missed out on everybody. So I think Texas, and not Texas Tech, is the financial juggernaut to watch. And what I don't know, and what nobody about this Cam Coleman recruitment knows, is whether or not Cam Coleman will take the highest amount, or does Cam Coleman like a place so much that he would take less money to go there? How much less money?
Yeah.
The idea is this Andrew Sprague guy turned down $700,000, right? Is Cam Coleman leaving $700,000? I don't know Cam Coleman.
Right.
I wouldn't leave $700,000 on the table.
Yeah.
But if I was getting $100 million and the difference was $101 million, that's different than if someone offers you 2 and someone offers you 900,000, right? Like there are levels to this, but it's the thing about this that we don't know. Anybody that tries to tell you, oh, Cam Coleman's going to do it like this has no idea, because the truth of the matter is the final numbers are not in Cam Coleman's agent's hands, which means they're not yet in. There is still a round of conversations when this is over with, the way that they've played it, where they're then going to go back to all of the schools and say, okay, it's money time.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that's going to be a huge
and
money.
That has not happened yet, Chad.
It hasn't. All right. We got some good super chats. Before that, real quick.
Stop sending super chats. We're 90 minutes in.
No, hang on. I got to do one more thing before I get out of here. AV consultations. Let me hit this, and then we'll clean up the super chats. I promise. 255-8678. AV consultations can get you set up with the screen you've always wanted, the room you've always wanted to watch movies in. Make sure you're streaming everything the right way. New episodes of all the shows. You know what you need. Now make it happen. 255-8678, or go to avconsultations.com. Tell them that you heard about it here on OB Live. We would certainly appreciate it. I will deal with one more super chat, and then Ketch is going to deal with the rest. Oscar says, breaking. Chad entering the portal. Texags is considering the early leader. A lot of left to go in this development. Billy Lucci had no comment when asked. Oscar, you can give us the development on that. Catch, there are some good portal questions in here.
Rapid fire. I don't want to leave anybody hanging.
No, you deal with it. I got to go.
Oh, I have to deal with it?
Can you deal with the super chats? Because I do have to go.
I have to go.
Okay, well then I'll
do the super chats, but I thought you were going to do the super chats. Okay. Hey,
we're
ATX Bates, my gut says multi-year NIL deals are the next evolution to keep guys in, and incentive-based deals. We already see some of that, ATX Bates. Hard to do it with 85 guys because, perfect example, look at all these freshmen right now that Texas is having conversations with, Jamie French among them, where they don't want to pay them on a 2-year deal for this exact reason. Moving on, Mark says, NIL Solutions, CDC gets Brian an office at the Yellow Rose, and he gets the good players. He gets rid of the bad ones. They can leave with a smile. I'd go to the Yellow Rose with Brian. That sounds like a good time. Why have we not done that yet? Roma77 says, bring back John Tay. It's not going to happen, but they got to get some guys. They need good players, not all great players. They can take some good ones, and John Tay is a good one. And finally, last super chat from Texas Blake 1. Seems like Sark has wanted to spend top dollar for starters and basically nothing for backup players. Yeah. I mean, yeah, especially if you're going to pay top dollar for starters. There is no pot of gold under the rainbow. There's Santa's toy sack is not where they get to pay these kids from. They're having to make some tough calls. And a lot of it is, do we go and get top end starters and not pay our backups a ton of money? Or do we pay the backups a little bit more money and not have any top end starters? They're choosing the former rather than the latter. It comes with a cost. Everything comes with a pound of flesh, even in the portal. All right, guys, Liverpool plays in a half hour. I haven't had lunch. I got to check on my wife. I got stuff. I don't even know what's going on in the portal. Somebody could have made something up and I wouldn't have been able to verify it. So I got to get back to work and get lunch and watch Liverpool and just do all my stuff. Have a great rest of the day. We'll do this again tomorrow. Who knows? Maybe the Cam Coleman sweepstakes will have come to the finish line. I don't think so, but check it out tomorrow.